Okay, everybody. Here we are to talk about the company experience in the Digital Summer Clinic. I'm Bud Gibson, and I think this is we're doing this both for people who are in the audience, and then also for people who might be tuning in later to kind of catch up on what this is all about. This is our 11th year doing this. And we started back in 2015 with 20 students that were in our recruiting pool. We wound up taking 12 of them and putting them with 6 companies. Our plans this year are to hire 48 students and put them with 24 companies. And as of 1 minute ago, we had 540 applicants. And applications close April 25th. So last year we had just a bit under 600. I think we're going to blow past that this year. So you're kind of seeing us in the last throes of a long recruiting drive. So if you're interested in this, I have both a link and a QR code. So if you're watching this on video, you can just take your phone and point it at our QR code. It has all the information that you need to apply to be a company in the Digital Summer Clinic. It has our sort of our 2-page fact sheet and then a link to how to sign up for an interview for the process. Okay, so if you want to participate, well, step one is if you need to come to the information session, then sign up for an interview. And we have interviews next week. Those are actually all filled up, as it turns out, on the 17th and 18th. The time is, I think we go 9:30 to noon and then 2 to 4, both of those days. Nora is nodding yes. And then those are filled up, but we still have time on the 24th and the 25th where the hours are exactly the same. Okay. The interview is the start of the application process. And to give you an idea of what we do in the interview, we try and get a sense of what your company is, who you are as company management. It's typically founders, but sometimes companies are a little bit bigger and they have some employees. So kind of understand where you're at, understand your products. We're really looking for companies that have some kind of product in the field. Now, it could be a pilot product with pilot customers, but you have to have gotten past the idea stage. That's actually where we're able to be effective for you. And then we need somebody dedicated full time to the company. Okay, so that could be one person even. If you have any questions about that, feel free to drop them. I mean, it's not like we've never made exceptions, but we're really looking for companies that are companies, and we want to make sure that the interns have somebody they can reach out to on a regular basis. Okay. And of course, always email me if you need to. Hopefully, I'll be quick to respond. This is a really busy time of year. fgibson@emish.edu. But hopefully, our company information sheet, this is the same URL as the QR code, can answer most of your questions. Okay. Now, so I'm going to I've already started to front load this with information. I'm happy to have an interactive session. If people are asking questions, feel free, just raise your hand. Feel free to venture forth with those questions. We are, correct, Nora, live streaming this session on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Okay, very good. So, and you can ask questions from there too. They pop into our live streaming system. Okay. So you can ask, if you're on live stream, you can ask questions in the comments section of whatever app you're using. Okay, they'll pop through to us. Okay. Well, okay. So if you want to find out more about me, and I'll do a little brief intro of me right now. I have been working at Eastern Michigan University. I'm actually completing my 19th year there. It's the longest I've ever worked anywhere. Prior to that, I was at the University of Michigan in what became the Ross School for 9 years. I have a PhD from Carnegie Mellon University. I have an MBA from the Wharton School, and I got my bachelor's at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. I worked as an international consultant for a while, both here in the U.S., the Middle East, and Europe. I think that's adequate information about me. We've been doing, as I mentioned earlier, we've been doing the clinic now for 11 years. Okay, so I've been heavily engaged in this activity. Okay, so we're going to talk about what is the clinic. I have members of the mentoring team here, and we will introduce them. Then I also have most members of our field team, although most of the field team, those are our student workers, and we call them the field team because they're actually out doing events and activations. I think we've done close to 30 here in this semester, and we typically do during the school year about 30 activations. And an activation is just a mini event where you press the flesh, and then we do a lot of activity in the summer with our all hands meetings during the summer clinic. Okay, so what is the clinic? Okay, it's a 9-week, 90-hour mentored internship. Okay, so it's a part-time internship. They're not working 90 hours a week. Okay, it's 10 hours a week for 9 weeks. And it can go to more than that, but those 10 hours are paid for in full by a Spark grant. So if you're a Spark incubator client, you get this as one of your benefits. Okay. You can go beyond that, but you would maybe have to use another Spark grant and pay half the internship wages yourselves. And so, think of 2 interns, each one 10 hours a week. Interns work on a project developed by the company in collaboration with the mentoring team. So that interview that we have is kind of step 1 in setting up the project. Okay. And you're not held to the project. So we don't say, oh, you submitted a project and now, we're 2 weeks in and you varied from paragraph 5, sentence 2 by, 1 jot. No, it's more to kind of establish the general direction of where you're heading, knowing how to staff you, and we expect that things will evolve as you go through the summer. But it's kind of it's kind of to give everybody an idea of what you can expect at the end, because we want to make this a win-win situation for both interns and companies. And if you go in with a clear idea of what your objectives are, you're more likely to wind up with that win. Okay, now the interns. Okay, so this is the interns, not the companies. The interns, we put them into 2 cohorts. Okay, well, they're actually 4 cohorts, but they're Tuesday A and B and Wednesday A and B. Okay, so by day of the week, we have 2. And we have mentoring meetings with them, and they present a weekly progress report. So this is a chance. So that'll be 6 interns per meeting because 12 interns, 6 companies per meeting because we hire 48. And what we want to do is we want to check up with them. Well, what are your objectives? What were you able to achieve? Where are you getting stuck? And then the mentoring team, and typically they'll start to get stuck somewhere in weeks 3 or 4. And then the mentoring team offers them advice on how to get unstuck. And typically that advice is, so, we're talking about startup companies. You might have, I don't know, 1 full-time employee. who is maybe running out trying to drum up business or get funding. And so you're going to be on the road, and the team is saying, well, I haven't seen my boss in a week and I'm not sure what to do. And a typical mentoring kind of response will be, well, what is it you think you should be doing? And then why don't you develop a plan of action and then run that by your person, boss, I guess I'll say, and get their buy-in so that you can more or less work autonomously while they're busy doing other things. And that, that the idea is to kind of give them a sense of initiative and keep them moving forward. This is a 9-week experience. Okay. So, and like I say, we want to make it a win-win. So you've got to make progress to make a win. Okay, and that's actually, when we've done that, that's been very successful for the interns. I mean, they go on and the company hires them because folks want people on their team who are going to be helping them row to the objective, and somebody who can show some initiative and kind of think about how to move the ball forward is going to be somebody who's going to be able to help you get where you want to go. So that is the mentoring sessions. Then we have our all hands meeting each week. That's Thursdays at 7 with exciting guests. So those exciting guests might be founders from some of the companies in the clinic. And, we do seminars, we get your perspective, what possessed you to undertake this startup? And what are the challenges you see to kind of get your idea of how things work? Those are often, I mean, we often have all sorts of, it's meant to be both exciting guests and then networking experience. And we're going to be hybrid. So we're always hybrid. We do the mentoring sessions remotely via Zoom. We find that works quite well. And then we do the all hands in person. And since the pandemic, we started off with our first in-person all hands in 2022, when we were still getting notifications from the Washtenaw County Board of Health as to whether it was red, green, or yellow. And then trying to figure out, could we have an in-person meeting? I was always a little aggressive in my interpretation of those signs. And then starting in 23 and last year, we did 8, and we found that actually worked quite well. So having that combination of remote and in-person helped really build the team. Okay, so we have a couple of the mentors here. So I'm a mentor. Nick Woods from Google, who was in the clinic in 2018, he is also a mentor. He's a senior account exec at Google now. Natalie, why don't you, so Natalie, who is actually a fellow founder and whose company was in the clinic twice, and this will be her second year mentoring for us. Natalie, why don't you get up and say a word?
Should I come around?
Yeah, come around. Yeah, because you've got to be on the live stream.
Okay, got it.
And I have to stand near you so that my microphone can pick you up.
Okay.
And we'll see if that works.
Yeah, we were in the part of the client pool for 2 years. It's super helpful because not only the interns, they start becoming proactive, right? And like at that time, we were a much smaller team, as you mentioned earlier. Like I don't have the time to always coach them on everything. So I think the program's so well developed with all the support, all the touch bases, all the all hands, that like they get the support that they need to help your startup move and get things accomplished through the summer. So it was a really great experience, and I'm happy to be on the other side to help coach the interns to help other startups about that.
Yeah, and Natalie, you have an MBA from the local institution here in Ann Arbor.
You do, yep. Yeah. So I'm not originally from here, but I stayed here because of the amazing startup ecosystem here. So
now, where did you grow up again?
It's a triple whammy. So I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. My dad works at Ohio State, so I get some comments here and there. Then I got my undergrad at Notre Dame, so I get comments here and there too. None of my family friends and undergrad friends are happy with my all my changes and allegiances, I guess.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, Natalie. Kim, it's your turn. So kind of stand, I mean, at least half your head will be in there. Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kim Barker, and I am a mentor. This is my third year mentoring, and there's so many things I love about mentoring, but I really love coaching the students and how best to work in a team environment, and also in an entrepreneurial environment. There's some lessons learned along the way, and then I also really love the Thursdays when we all come together and learn from each other. I can't imagine a Thursday that I don't learn something new as well. So it's a very dynamic environment. You have awesome interns, and we coach them to maximize their success.
And you worked for a long time at U of M in healthcare administration, right?
Yeah, and then I got my PhD in 2015, and I've taught at EMU ever since. So.
And mainly communications, right?
Yep, communications, management, org theory, behavior, stuff like that. So.
And your husband, does he work at the U of M?
I don't know. I know this guy, and he works for Ross School of Business as well.
And he's the director of online learning?
Dig Ed.
Oh, digital.
So,
okay. All right. Yeah.
Not that has much to do with me, but
Yeah, but no, he pops through. I mean,
yes,
we've had him come by.
Yeah.
It's so we have various versions of community ties here.
He was one of those guest speakers.
Yeah, we had him. And Sufyan, it's your turn. Your turn. So Sufyan is the head of the marketing department at Eastern. He's also a supply chain management professor.
Yes.
And so Sufyan, why don't you give us your perspectives?
I've been in this program, I think 2018, if I'm not mistaken. So it's been a while. Every year it brings up good students, great companies. I think you guys will love this program. We mentor students in the 9-week program that we have over here. They do excellent jobs. I mean, I think they're well coached, and they have a lot of skills. So I would say you will enjoy this program. And yeah, I love this because we help students, we guide them through this program, and it's a win-win situation for us.
Okay.
I've been at EMU since 2013, I believe, Bud.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I do remember you
so.
coming after me.
Yeah. So and as Bud mentioned, I teach in the supply chain and operations management.
Okay.
So all right.
Great. All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so now we have the field team. So the field team are student workers, and sort of what we have come back to is sort of mentioning some of the things they did earlier. They engage. The whole idea is to have them engage with the interns, with the companies, to create events, to create social media, to kind of during the summer build the community of interns and develop cohesion there. And so I'll have each of them, I guess in order that we have them listed here. I'll have each of them pop up, so Micah and Ian, Justice is not with us, but Micah and Ian have both been through the program, and then Nora has applied and is going to be in the program. She's our first admit into the internship program. And so, Micah, why don't you come up and give a word or two about your experience?
Am I in there?
Yeah, well, is Micah showing up, Nora?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Micah. I did the internship program last summer, and it was a really great experience. Like the mentor said, they are there to guide us through every question that we may have. All of our projects are really challenging. So we're able to have help with those. And so when we go through the program, it's not just like we're just blindly thrown in
Now,
there.
were we doing the work for you when you say
No.
you had help? How did we help?
Guidance,
Guidance.
feedback. They would like challenge our thought process and like give us like, you know, a way to like rethink a problem, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Right.
So I think the program is really good, really beneficial. I learned a lot, and I feel like I was able to produce a lot of social media content for my company that I work with, which was really fun. So yeah, I really enjoyed my experience.
And she's
as an intern.
continued in that role with us.
Yeah.
And we had sort of record turnout at our fall conference, and it looks like we're about to get record recruits here from our interns. And Micah and Justice have been central to that field effort.
Yeah, so it's really good for our professional development. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Okay, great. Ian, we'll pull you up, and then Nora, because you're the new one on the block, we'll bring you up last.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ian Watson. I am a senior at U of M Dearborn. Going into the program, I really didn't have much experience really into like more of a professional setting. I really worked retail jobs, small business jobs. So coming into the clinic, it wasn't necessarily like going into this professional corporate setting. It was a startup setting. So, you know, you have your level of challenges and chaoses, you know, that's just kind of thrown into you week one. So myself, I was an introvert going into it and not really, you know, having any networking skills. I'm sure my resume barely got me into the clinic, but it was more about my take initiative and kind of motivation going into it. I was working for a small business supplement store before. I took the initiative, took over their social medias, and was able to generate some foot traffic in the store and then lead to the conversion into sales. Through that, I was able to transfer those skills into the clinic roles. I was able to do a lot of recruiting, a lot of publishing, like white papers and digital content, and really kind of learning, you know, I'm a marketing major, so kind of got to learn what parts of marketing I like, what parts I don't like, and then now I can pursue into my future career.
Now, what are you headed into this summer?
So this summer now, my main, desire would to be go into sports marketing. So doing all these activations as being a field manager, and then my experience with the clinic, I was able to get an internship with a company called Deet Sports and Entertainment. So now I'll be traveling all across the Midwest this summer.
Promoting Meyer.
Promoting Meyer at Midwest sporting events. So, yeah.
They have this big blow-up chair that people can sit.
People love it.
I've seen this on social media. But I think one of the key things, and this is actually with a number of the interns, Ian is saying, well, I was kind of working retail jobs, but I think one of the things that kind of caught us, and particularly in the interview, is you'll notice how his thought process, it wasn't, I'm just going to do social media, but it was kind of like, well, how do I bring people in, engage them, and get them to buy something from us, okay? Because, that's really what the bottom line is all about. And so I was kind of impressed with that. And he's actually shown that kind of same take initiative attitude throughout his process working with us as a field manager. So thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So Nora, now it's your turn.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nora, and as Bud mentioned, I haven't done the summer internship program, but I'm really excited about it. I'm currently a marketing major, but I was previously an entrepreneurship major, and I literally love the entrepreneurship world. You get a lot of hands-on experience in all the different aspects of a business, especially being so small and a small team. You get to see the ins and outs of the behind the scenes of a business, and also have different creativities and initiatives actually have an impact in something. That's what I really like about working in startups. And just talking with students, especially I'm rating applicants right now, and there's a lot of initiative, hardworking students that are really looking for this program. As Bud said, we almost have 600 applicants, so it's pretty competitive. But again, like I think all the students are really excited about this opportunity to, again, like get a lot of hands-on experience.
Yeah, Nora has actually played a big role in our pre-screening process. We realized after the applications rose above a couple of hundred that we were going to need to do things differently. And so if we go back to last year, I had the student team with a little set of screening rules, and we would go through the applications. And I would say that was somewhat effective. This year we developed a number of AI screening rules that looked for particular characteristics in the applications, and then basically moved people out who were not in the profile. And by it, we take a wide variety of people. But for instance, if you are studying some kind of esoteric engineering and want a job doing that, we don't offer that. Okay, so we're not chemical engineering, for instance, and we get people like that. People just drive by. So it sounds fantastic. Oh wow, all these resumes. Well, we will wind up giving further review to about half of those resumes because they are either beyond entry level. These are really entry level roles. And so they're beyond entry level. And so it might be somebody who, for whatever reason, has an undergrad degree, spent a number of years pursuing that profession, and now is getting a master's in that same profession. Well, that's not really our demographic for interns. That we won't have a way to place those people, and so they kind of go by the wayside. Then we also, less of this year, but we also have people who sometimes apply from very far away. And we make it clear, you've got to be around. We're going to be doing in-person stuff, and we sort of wonder how they would ever make their way over here to Ann Arbor for our 10 hours a week, $19 an hour job. And so we've got various screenings that go on like that, and then we have it checked by humans, okay? Because as we all know, AI can actually do a pretty good job of summarizing and categorizing people, but it sometimes misses. And so that's why we have human post AI review. And so Nora and Ian have actually been part of that. And she's done a bang up job.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Now, so we were kind of selling you on the program and everything, but I want to also kind of throw a small bit of cold water on all of that and kind of give you some realistic expectations for what an intern is like. So they're typically, you can think of them as being a college student or just graduated. Okay. This means they're young. They don't have a lot of experience. Some a little bit more than others, but not a lot of experience. They're not really entirely sure what they want to do. They have some ideas about what they want to do, but they don't necessarily have a lot of experience doing it. Okay. So, and we take from a wide range of majors because we put together projects that are loosely digital marketing, but digital marketing can be a lot. Okay. It can be creating it can be helping with the user experience of your product. And the justification for that is kind of product development. And the justification for that is you're developing a whole chain that draws in people from outside, typically through some marketing effort, inside to your product. And then are you fulfilling the expectations that you've set in the user through your marketing? And so sometimes that will play out in terms of redesigning an interface or designing a dashboard to track what people are doing on your website or in your product. When I say computer science, I should also include data science in there, so there can be some hardcore data analytics. But, to give you an example, somebody we had who would kind of fit in there, more of a technical person, sophomore last year, he had put together a bunch of kind of cool little analytical packages, keying off of Google Sheets, that he had been helping out friends of his who had small businesses figure out what was going on and how to analyze things for their business. Okay, so that would be, and he's a computer science major, and he's actually going to do an internship at Ford this summer. So that would be kind of, if you think of a computer science person, that would be the kind of person we pull in. We also have students from the School of Information and MSU and EMU, for that matter, doing user experience, and doing various things like website design. So if you're thinking about, we're going to create a marketing website, which is, frankly, I always recommend you use a platform like WordPress or Squarespace or something like that. But then you want to think about, okay, now how is this marketing website going to lead to sales? What are the expectations you're setting? And that's where somebody with some user experience, coursework, and perhaps projects under their belt could help you out. Okay, and then we have various people doing content creation. So it's a wide range. So they may have some prior internships. They may have prior job experience is a plus, because it indicates that the person has good work hygiene. They know how to show up, and that can sometimes, we screen for that. That can be an issue in that age group. And some are business majors, but that's actually not the majority. Maybe it's the plurality. And they're working to gain confidence. Okay, so what Micah was talking about, challenging our thought processes, supporting us, that getting them to kind of move from student mode into active employee participant mode. Okay, and that's something that that I would say most of them are having some issues with. Not every of them, but every one of them, but most of them. Okay. Now, this is our pitch to students, just so that you know. They like the fact, and we actually designed this. We asked, we are emphasizing the things that we want to make sure are first and foremost, but then we asked them also, what did you most appreciate about this? First off, they like that there's opportunity. So, when you say we've got an internship, well, often companies will come in and they got like 2 intern slots open. Well, we have 48. Okay, so they think they have a chance of getting it. We tell them up front they'll be working with 24 high-tech companies. It's 9 weeks. You'll notice we put the money in at the end. Now, there are a lot of internships out there that are unpaid, or lower paid. This is not super high paid, okay, but it corresponds with sort of high-end retail in the area. So let's say you're working your way through school, which, Ian, U of M Dearborn, working his way through school. Other student, Nora, working her way through school. Micah also working to get through school. So, gee, I'm going to have to give up my job to do this internship, and I'm not sure I want to do that because that's how I make my money. So that's actually, part-time can be attractive from that perspective. And it is paid. So if you're kind of throttling down the hours from your other job, you're going to get maybe not equivalent, but depending on where you're working and how long you've been there, but close to equivalent. And then the mentors and the experiences by the end of the clinic, that's what they're all saying really made it for them. And they, the money, I guess, by that stage is just a given. And so that's our pitch. So we've kind of based it on years of working with students and kind of understanding what draws them in, and then also what we want to enforce, because right from the start of the recruiting process, we are attempting to instill an ethos as to what this is going to be about and what expectations are. Okay, so this again is the QR code, pitch at the front, pitch at the back, in case you were kind of cool at the beginning or now heated up. And so we'll go directly into Q&A. Do we have anything from our massive online audience? Apparently not. Well, we're doing that largely for archival purposes. We do have people. Does anybody here have any questions? Yes.
Thank you. My question is about the internship. Is it, as a company, could you get two, because you've been trying to do a campaign, get two different skill sets working together, or you would only get one skill set?
So first off, what's your name?
Pravina.
And who do you, what's your company, Pravina?
Cargility.
Cargility. Okay. The answer is you can get people with different skill sets. So it's interesting because, you think of pairs like paired programming, right? So they're both working on the same project and one's looking over the shoulder of the other. But what we found is that having a pair in there is a support system. You're both sitting in the same company, you're able to share with each other, so you can get different skill sets. Okay. Well, I saw you move ever so, and you're Robert, right?
Yes.
Ever so slightly faster.
Like a millisecond faster.
Yeah.
My name is Al. I'm the founder of a startup called Roadster, or Client of Spark.
Okay.
We've not participated in digital summer clinic before, so we're an applicant. Hopefully get accepted. My experience has been working with interns in the past, is especially with their students, is that our responsibility is to make sure that they're learning. Right at the end of the day, they walk away from their internship that they've learned something that they can put towards their career in the future, or perhaps grants them another internship or a paid job after graduation.
Right.
Now, given that this is a 10-hour per week internship, I'm curious to know what if, for instance, there might be a task that may require them additional hours per week or additional hours overall in the program. How do you work that out?
Okay, so Al would like to know, okay, so let's say that I have a project and, realistically, 10 hours a week is not going to be enough. And so how do you handle that? Well, I think you can actually, there are various mechanisms whereby you could hire them for more hours per week. And so one that companies have used quite a bit is there are these various Spark grants you can get that will cover half the intern cost. So you would pay half, they would pay half. Sometimes companies have resources, like they have revenues, and so they will just hire the interns outright for extra hours. If you're thinking you might want to use somebody for extra hours, my best advice is give them a couple of weeks on the job and see how it's shaking out, and then start to move towards that extra hours per week. Okay. Because and that I think try before you buy, more fully. Okay, and I think that's good advice. Natalie, you are a former founder. Would you say that's good advice?
Yeah.
Well, you're still a founder, but
we loved our intern. We had a fall star. It's literally the first year, and she was interested in video games, which is our company. And so we hired her for chunks of time, even afterwards. So I think you get a good sense after the first few weeks. Because some students don't have necessarily experience quite yet because it's a startup, and it's a very different environment, right? Like for me, I can't spend all day with them to give them coaching and all that. And so usually when I hire employees for my startup, I'm really looking for that fit and if they can have initiative. So I do recommend something they grow in the role over the course of time. So you'll have a better idea of their potential as you get to know them over the first few weeks.
I remember the intern she's talking about, and my concern with her, first off, she had this unpaid internship that she was just absolutely adored. And I said, but we're offering money over here. And then, but she really wanted to get into gaming. She was completely overloaded. I also talked with her about that. I said, Madison, are you going to possibly be able to do this? And I don't know.
Doing more hours.
Yeah, and some sort of 24/7 schedule that woman had. And but you see that. So Al, that would be my recommendation there. So Robert, you had a question.
A few questions. But,
Okay, well, that
are you allowed to tell us how many people or companies have applied to be part of the program so far?
I think at this stage, we have 27 companies signed up for interviews. Okay. So we need 24. So really our criteria for taking companies is kind of what I just said. Do you have a product in market with some kind of customers? Do you have somebody working full time? And then we do get limited to 24, but it turns out that those two criteria eliminate a lot of companies. Okay. That's sort of where that falls.
Okay, you answered my other question actually with that one.
Okay.
What other qualities could a company have to be better qualified to get into the program?
Well, I think an important thing is, we're looking for, okay, so I think having realistic expectations as a manager helps. Okay. That doesn't mean that you're super tolerant of, shenanigans or anything like that, but you understand that you're dealing with a young person who, okay, I often describe these people this way. Their whole life they've gone through, they took a test. Okay, so how did they get all the way through high school? Well, they just got moved along if they passed their courses. How did they get into college? Well, they took a test and wrote some essays. And then along with maybe a few thousand other people, thinking of U of M here, I got accepted into college. But now suddenly college is ending. That process doesn't work like that anymore. What do I do next? And they're trying to figure it out. So, so are you able to meet with the intern? We'll get a sense of that. Do you have a sense of like getting value out of the people who work for you? Okay, because that's really at the end of the day, frankly, what is your attitude as a manager? But I don't know that we have hard and fast criteria on that, but we're looking for, what I just described. We'll be able to take a team and get something out of them.
Thank you.
Oh, Nora has a question.
No, we have 2 online questions.
Oh my God, online questions. All right, so we know this wasn't for naught. We went through some effort to do this.
So the first one is from Bill Crane. He asks, as a company, would it be best to scope projects that are solely focused in focus areas like design, social, or analytics?
I think is okay. So Bill, who we've worked with in the past with another one of his startups, Bill wanted to know, well, how should I think of project scope basically, and does it help to have a narrow scope? Was what he was saying, and I think it pays to be as concrete as possible, and in particular, think about what it is you want out of this. The more you can think about concretely where we'll wind up, even if, my experience of doing projects, there's always some moment in the middle where you realize the grand vision that you had at the start is not exactly where you're going to come to at the end. Okay. And so, but that's okay, because by having that vision, you've kind of set up, you know the ballpark you want to land in, and you know the kind of things that you want. Okay, and so being concrete about your objectives and thinking about, I've got a person, I've got 2 people, what could they achieve? I think that's really good for project description.
The second one is from Kennedy Weddell, I believe. You mentioned distance being a factor in selection. What cities are considered too far?
Okay, so Kennedy has asked, well, what are our distance criteria? Now, is Kennedy a company or we don't know? It's possible that we may have some potential interns on the call. So, all right, so in terms of distance, I'll answer that in 2 ways. So if you are an intern, I think the answer is, are you going to be living within a reasonable commute during the summer? And so that often means within about 30 miles of Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti. But we have people coming from Detroit, and and that has worked in the past. What doesn't work is, I'm going to be up in Sutton's Bay all summer, and I'd like to commute in via Zoom. Sutton's Bay is just north of Traverse City, if you're not super familiar with Michigan geography. And so that won't work. So for interns, that's the answer. If you're a company, so with companies, we have a few ways companies can work with interns. We do have some companies that are purely virtual and they want to work with interns purely remotely. And there are sometimes interns who want to do that. So that's a mode you could work with your interns. That requires an organized intern, okay? And it requires, also the company's got to be organized. But if you have developed that work remotely culture, then you have a series of systems in place as your company to make that work, okay? And so that's a possibility. I find most companies going for either a hybrid or a fully in-person approach, because I think if you think, okay, I'm dealing with young people who need some help getting enculturated. I'm not sure if that's a word, but kind of understanding how it all works. Then I need to see them in person a little bit. That doesn't mean you need to see them 10 hours a week. You might have a weekly meeting or a get together, or even a 2-weekly meeting. Wouldn't suggest going beyond that, okay, to connect with them. And then sometimes, the company, I know we're going to have one of our companies, they're kind of a fully in-person kind of operation. They're over here in Cahoots and they have the interns come sit with them. So you could be kind of remote as a company. I think the key thing is that's going to put more of a management burden on you. And then also, if you're in the Spark incubator, which kind of implies being around here, you get this program for free. If you're not in the Spark incubator, it's $4,000. That's at least the price we set last year. I don't anticipate that changing. That's kind of how distance plays out for companies. So I tried to address that from multiple angles. Is there anything else there, Nora? Any other questions, remarks?
One over here. So as far as providing interns with laptops and access to internet and so forth, is that the responsibility of the startup or is that provided to them elsewhere?
So that's a great question. Now, when we screen the interns, we ask them what kind of computing device they have. And we screen it for adequacy. Okay, so so I get, what is it? How old is it? And then are you able to get your work done? So they have something, okay. They don't necessarily have a supercomputer, and we have had companies who have, because they need more computing oomph. We have had companies provide devices, but that's kind of so. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and related to that, just a little more on the cybersecurity side of things.
Yes.
If we are using personal email addresses, my concern would be how to handle sensitive data, sensitive company data, even if they're using personal laptops. So how do we go about that? Are there systems in place for that?
Well, okay, so that would be infrastructure you would have to supply. So, for instance, now I don't have I actually have some cybersecurity concerns. But the interns, so our field managers who work for us, they all have at digitalsummer.clinic email accounts. And that's what they use to access certain of our systems, okay, not just their personal email. And then we have a couple of those systems fairly locked down. But that's something we just we realized we needed it, and so as an organization, that's become part of our operating budget. The question was about cybersecurity and securely accessing information. Okay, and so I think accessing secure sites with personal devices, there's always some risk there, right? So what is your company now?
Yeah, so Roadster is it's a mobility startup. We're developing the world's most advanced fleet safety technology.
Okay.
In a nutshell, it is hardware that can be installed in vehicles to help improve driver safety awareness.
Okay.
Such as pre-collision alerts, location tracking.
Okay.
It's designed to be a solution to be sold to businesses.
Okay.
Fleet companies.
Right. Okay. Well, so, you might wind up, so in your scenario, kind of depending, I might imagine that you want people to come into the office and work with you. Maybe not, but, or you might want to issue them a laptop, or you might want to issue them some sort of credential for accessing certain systems.
Yeah, the way we've handled it in the past is we provided all the hardware, as well as email domains, so that everything is secure within the company.
Well, then, yeah, you can do that with these folks too, and that's something we talk about during the interview process. That's going to require some setup, obviously, where they come in and get the stuff from you, and so that we'll leave that to you to think about. Pravina. Well, it's kind of like Praveen, but with at the end. Yeah.
The other question is, how does this work? So we have interviews with you next week.
Yes.
From the company side, and you have a team interview going through the 500 plus students. Once you're down to your pool of your students, how does that match occur?
Oh, how does the match occur?
Process, or is there too bad? Here's your two people. Not too bad. Here's your two people. Work with them. Sorry.
Well, the last. So Pravina was asking, well, how does all of this matching work? And because we're going to have maybe 600 applicants. We're probably going to more fully review around 300 of those. We'll interview about 100. Okay. And all of that is going to take, if I remember correctly, it is going to take through May 16th or 17th. Then we will have offers out to the interns, and strangely enough, completed before Memorial Day. And so you can think of us as an agency where we place people with you. And what we do is during the interview, we get their skill sets, and we've actually already assessed those to some degree, but we verify them during the interview. And then we look at the skill sets you're looking for, and then people who have passed muster in the interview with those skill sets then get considered for that position. So it's a whole thing. Okay. And so, well, Natalie, you were on the receiving end of this. It worked, but it didn't, there were sometimes some bumps in the road.
In terms of timing, right?
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is just making once you know your interns, you're just free to communicate.
Right.
So as long as you're on top of it and you get everything set up correctly, then you don't have to worry about anything else after that. So just I would say being proactive about that piece,
Right. So did I answer your question, Pravina?
Thank you.
Okay. No problem.
And I'm just constantly amazed how fast 9 weeks go.
Oh yeah. Well,
So
that's and we emphasize that it seems like you're going to have all this time. No, you're not. Here's what's going to happen is you're going to come in, you're going to figure out where the bathroom is. That back in my day, it was sort of like you arrive at the place, and after 2 weeks, you figured out where the restroom is. So that's actually what's going to happen. You're going to kind of have figured out a few things. We'll make it to July 4th, where we have a week of no meetings. Okay, so that week we're not going to have any meetings. They're free to continue working with you, but they're not going to meet with us. You're going to come back from July 4th, and then suddenly you're going to realize half the internship is over. You're actually at the midpoint of the internship. And then we're headed towards, we'll end on August 8th. Then suddenly you're headed towards August 8th. And then we're starting to talk somewhere around mid-July about making sure that you bring all of your projects to a good conclusion. And so, no, it rockets by. That's a good point, Kim.
What was the starting date again?
The starting date is June 9th. So we should have the match done, and somehow is Memorial Day May 26th. Yeah. So we should have the match done by May 26th. So that'll give us roughly 2 weeks to start date. And then one of the things, so if I was going to go through phases of the internship as I perceive them, the first one is making sure that everybody gets connected. Okay, because we've got this whole thing with a million moving pieces. We've made the match with companies. Have you, in that first week, have you had your first meeting with your company? Okay. Almost all the time, the answer is yes. But if the answer is no, then that's something to deal with. And then, you've gotten all of your paperwork done. And then making sure that you're in there getting started with projects and you're actually making progress, because again, 9 weeks goes by very quickly. Sometimes, we have 2 people in the field manager pool who will confess to being introverts. And we're kind of probing you to make sure that things really are going well, that you're not just kind of, edging by and, hoping things will somehow work out, but that you're actually taking action, making sure you're connecting with your manager, and that, you've got things to do and you're starting to make progress on them. That first part is all about that. And then the second part is really just kind of starting to think about, okay, I know, and the second half is thinking about, well, I know what I can do more or less by the end of the internship. And so how am I keeping my manager informed about where I think I'm going to be by the end? Because sometimes people have an expectation and you realize, oh my gosh, we're not going to get there. And so surprising people early or informing them early is way better than surprising them late. Okay. And letting the person know, hey, I'm getting stuck. Okay. So they can figure out, well, they can help prioritize. Is that really important? Is there something they could do to help out? So that starts to happen. We try to get things really kicked off in the first week so that people can have those experiences in July and start to inform their managers. So you see a lot of this is, basically a lot of this is about having a professional job, okay, in a nutshell. Okay, it looks like we may have run out of questions. So are you here in lieu of Eric? Logan? Okay. That's okay, Logan. It's 5 and we're scheduled to end at 5. So it's 5:01 even. So Nora, wrap us up, please, online. Everybody, it was a pleasure getting to chat with you, and we look forward to doing interviews in the next